Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Andrew Yang, and we're going to talk about Saturday Night Live's coverage of the 2020, of the November 20th Atlanta MSNBC Washington Post debate number 5. So this week, Saturday Night Live did coverage of the, specifically the November 20th Atlanta MSNBC Washington Post, November November 20th, Atlanta, MSNBC, Washington Post, debate number 5. And it was two things. It was hysterical, and it was historically important. It was really, really funny. It was incredibly well executed. It really also, I need you guys to understand that there's something really important happening with Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live is pretty incredible. It's always been in the mix for politics, and it goes back a long, long way. Saturday Night Live's impact on politics goes back all the way to when Chevy Chase did a bumbling, very physical, clumsy humor about Gerald Ford and absolutely decimated Ford. To this day, I think, Gerald Ford always had a very tough time being president because of the circumstances he came in under, and Chevy Chase just made him look like a bumbling buffoon, and I think a lot of people remember that image to this day, and so that was when when Saturday Night Live just really slammed a political dagger into the ground and said, we're part of the political mix, and we're here, we have something to say. And one thing that's very sad about SNL's commentary on politics is it's incredibly one note. It's all on the left. They'll throw some jokes at the left, but the reality is every single writer who's ever written for SNL is dyed in the wool blue. They've never had a red comic on that show as a writer or as an actor even once. I don't think it's ever been once. I think there was a time where SNL considered very, very carefully about bringing in a red writer, right? Actually, I'm sorry, a red player, right? An actual SNL red player. I'm not going to touch that because I think that's a story in and of itself. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. But I do think SNL really struggles with being incredibly one note, right? And that's a problem. It's a real problem. I think Lauren Michaels actually understands that and made some attempts to fix it, and those attempts failed. Yeah, so maybe they'll fix that in the future. We'll see. All right. So let's keep moving here. This was absolutely fascinating, what was discussed in the SNL skit that covered the November 20th Atlanta MSNBC Washington Post debate number 5. So what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to go through every single debate candidate. And by the way, this is continuing to prove there's so much here. This is so all right. So we all watched the debate, and then I covered the debate. And then SNL did a skit about the debate. And now I'm going to cover SNL's skit about the debate that I covered. It gets so meta, right? All right, so, but this, it's really incredible. This is so incredible. I love this skit. It was really great. It's very important because I absolutely think, without a doubt, this skit is going to shift votes. It's either going to shift thousands of votes, tens of thousands of votes, hundreds of thousands of votes, possibly low millions of votes. There's no question this will shift votes, right? There are questions about which way it'll shift votes, right? It's interesting, all right? So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about every single debate candidate. Oh, yeah. Oh, there's so much to talk about. I appreciate your patience. If you're not into debates, you are not really a candidate, right? Bennett, Williamson, they're functionally in the debate. They're functionally in the race. They really are not in the race. It's things like this. If you're not into debate, you don't get into SNL. Right, into SNL skits. If you're not in SNL skits, you're losing your time in front of millions of viewers who watch SNL, and then you're losing your time when there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of stories that cover the SNL content. Right, SNL content makes news. Like, this is amazing. It's truly amazing what is happening in our society, right? It's just, I've never seen anything like this. It's really something. All right, let's get into this, all right? So, yeah, let's start jamming through this. All right. So, I'm going to go through every candidate. I'm going to talk about the person who played them, who played that candidate, and then we're going to talk about, and so if I mention them first, they're either Andrew Yang. We're going to talk about Yang first because the world revolves around Yang, not the other way around, right? And then we're going to talk about every other candidate and the person who played that candidate. And the sooner I mention them in the video, the better the job the player, the SNL player, or the person who was brought in to serve as an SNL player, right, did as that person. Like how good they were as far as being funny, how good they were as far as copying that person and actually kind of being that person as an actor, or the impact they had. The later they are mentioned in this video, the worse job that SNL player or that person replacing an SNL player did. Okay? All right, so one, Andrew Yang was done by Bowen Yang. Bowen Yang is brand new, okay? And I think he did a fine job being Andrew Yang. It's pretty incredible that both of their last names are Yang. That's a pretty wild coincidence. Interesting coincidence, right? One of the things I think is interesting is the SNL has become very aware that maybe it's not cool to have people who are of another race play as an actor or play as a player or play as a comedian, someone who's not of the same race. I think that seems kind of woke, but is it? Like, okay, so right out of the gate, you're like, yeah, you really should be the same race, but am I the only one who saw Hamilton? You know, that was supposed to be a breakthrough. That was supposed to release us from this, oh, a person of color couldn't play Jefferson. Like, it's odd. It's odd. I'm not sure it's necessary for Bowen Yang to play Andrew Yang, right? Again, am I the only person who saw Hamilton? It's kind of odd. All right. Hey, I invite your correction on that one if you think I'm wrong, but I think there's something to think about there. All right. Let's talk about. And by the way, they said that Andrew Yang's VP would be the Cybertruck. Very, very funny. Very interesting. They did a great job with Yang, and the reality is, Yang wasn't the most important part of the sketch, but it's a big deal that Yang was in this sketch, right? Because the reality is, by making these debates, he continues to make himself a conversation, and he fights and he fights and he fights to overcome the Yang media blackout. And guess what? When you're on SNL, that helps with the Yang media blackout, right? It's a big help. So I'm very proud of him. I'm proud that Andrew Yang is part of the skit, and I think Bowen Yang did a great job. All right, let's talk about Joe Biden. Oh my gosh. Woody Harrelson played Joe Biden, and Woody Harrelson is mentioned here first because he was the best. And guess what? Woody Harrelson is not just, oh, Woody Harrelson's the best. The dude's got an Oscar. He's an Oscar award-winning actor, right? There's a reason he's at the top of this list. He's amazing, right? He's incredibly amazing, right? And he has a lot to say about politics. If you haven't seen Zombieland 2, you better go there because that's a very political movie. I got a whole video right here on this channel about Zombieland 2 and politics and Andrew Yang, right? Biden knocked it out of the park, and he absolutely crushed. So Woody Harrelson, oh my gosh, he just crushed Joe Biden. He made Joe Biden look even more tired and ready to be out of this race than people thought he was before. It was he just eviscerated him, and I really think this is going to make it. This portrayal of Biden by Woody Harrelson is going to make it even harder for Joe Biden to continue. I don't really think there's any reason for him to be in this race at this point. I really think it's kind of cruel to him. I don't think Biden wants to be in this race at any point. I think he gets the idea that a lot more people are laughing at him than with him, and it shouldn't be either way, and it's not good. It's a bad situation, and I think we're all learning as Americans. Maybe if you're going to run for the presidency, you shouldn't be over retirement age. This is becoming like, this isn't funny anymore. The people are getting physically, emotionally, spiritually hurt. This is now the spiritual one. I'm evangelical Christian, Nobody else needs to sign on that, right? But I think there's a lot of pain here, and I really, at this point, I'm feeling bad for Woody Harrelson, for Joe Biden. Let's talk about Kamala Harris. Maya Rudolph played Kamala Harris. Maya Rudolph is an absolute master at comedy and acting. She's an incredible talent. She did a great job with Harris. It was by far the funniest of all the skits, and it was just hysterical. And it was so well done. It was perfect. I'm a huge fan of Maya Rudolph. For her own work, but also she has this not weird, just like a very funny, very close relationship with Martin Short. Martin Short's one of my favorite actors. Their relationship is just as friends is really winsome and wonderful to me, and I really enjoy seeing them together. Okay, let's talk about. Yeah. Oh yes. Real quick, I'm going to throw in here Rachel Maddow, one of the moderators, was played by Melissa Villasenor. Melissa Villasenor. She is absolutely brilliant. She was pitch perfect as Rachel Maddow. Melissa Villasenor is an absolute master comedian, incredibly talented. I'm looking forward to the next 20 or 30 years of her career. I think she's going to be huge. I think she's off to a great start. She's super funny, super talented, she did a fantastic job. Also, as we're doing this, like, just look at all the women who are in this skit and who are just doing a great job and crushing it with their roles. It says a lot about SNL that SNL actually employs quite a few female comedians and is a place for female comedians to grow. And on the Democrat side, we're all woke that we should care about that. I do, and I think it's a great thing. I like SNL from that perspective. All right, let's talk about Tulsi Gabbard. Oh my gosh, it was Cecily Strong. Cecily Strong is like an anchor on that show. She's incredibly, just so talented, so funny. She looked exactly like Tulsi. I mean, it was like a twin, right? Like, she looked exactly like her. So Cecily Strong did a really, really, really good job. Super funny. But they also kind of they literally called Tulsi a villain. She said, "I'm the villain here," and I was like, "Whoa, that's a little harsh," and of course, NBC is close to MSNBC, and I think they were a little too hard on Tulsi. That was a little rough. I'm pretty hard on Tulsi myself, though. I don't think she can be elected. I guess that's pretty cruel to say. Okay, let's talk about Amy Klobuchar. Oh my gosh, this was played by Rachel Dratch. And Rachel Dratch is, by the way, Cecily Strong and Melissa Villasenor, they are current SNL players, right? And it's interesting what current SNL cast members actually got included and which ones didn't, right? But Rachel Dratch is a veteran SNL female player. She played Amy Klobuchar. She did a fantastic job. She was very well suited to the role. One of the things when I saw Amy Klobuchar, you can find it right in my commentary. I was like, I think Amy Klobuchar was shaking, right? Now I commented on it, right? And I was like, and sometimes when I comment on candidates' physical behavior, I'm like, oh, this is kind of a weird space to be in. Is this fair? Am I seeing what I'm seeing? Because I don't want to accuse somebody of something. But oh my gosh, Rachel Dratch, that was her entire impersonation of Klobuchar, was just shaking her head around. And and one of the things that we just have to remember is like this is the deep end of the pool, all right? Like when you run for president, it's all political daggers are coming out. People are going to come gunning for every single mistake you make. Every single mistake you make with your physical body and with your mental mind, right? And frankly, I would even say that there's spiritual warfare happening with these candidates as well. Again, if you're not an evangelical Christian, I get it, right? I am. To me, if there's a third of the world that you don't acknowledge, hey, you're on my channel, right? It's not going to talk about it, right? So the reality is, but the reality is if you make a mistake mentally, physically, or spiritually, you're going to pay for it, right? You really are. Like, you can't make a single misstep. And I really like Amy Klobuchar. She's a fantastic candidate. She's half as cool as Yang, which makes her the coolest in the whole pack, right? Except for Yang. And they just like they crucified her. Like, this is a brutal I would feel very upset if people were making fun of me like this. But guess what? This is the deep end of the pool. Put on your big girl pants. This is this is go time. Like this is what happens when you run for president. Let's talk about Warren, all right? Elizabeth Warren was played by Kate McKinnon. Kate McKinnon is a current SNL cast member. She's very funny. I really enjoyed her in her Ghostbusters movie. She was fantastic. I miss Leslie Jones on SNL. By the way, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool. I watch SNL every single week, right? By the way, if you haven't watched Spooky Song with Chance the Rapper from a few weeks back, go watch that. Hysterically funny. Probably one of the funniest skits they've done in a long, long time. Chance the Rapper. I didn't really know about that guy. He's very talented. He was excellent. All right, Kate McKinnon. Here's my issue, right? This is unfair to put Kate McKinnon in as Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren has never been a fraction as cool as Kate McKinnon is playing Elizabeth Warren, right? They are actually they are upping and promoting that candidate. But again, SNL is establishment media, right? And so of course they're backing an establishment candidate. So, Kate McKinnon has no business playing Elizabeth Warren or she needs to dial down her natural charisma and coolness when she does so, because Elizabeth Warren ain't this cool, right? So I think that's kind of a little off whack, all right? Next is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders said it, actually he was played by Larry David. I think Larry David was the main writer for Seinfeld, and I think he was on Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm not a big fan of Larry David, but he did a great job with Bernie Sanders. And he said, I had a heart attack. You ought to know by now. Oh my gosh, it was funny. Larry David did a great job with it, and SNL went right to the target, man. Bernie Sanders' heart attack is the #1 event of the 2020 U.S. presidential primary race. Nothing that's going to happen is as big as what happened with Bernie Sanders. It's huge. It is huge, right? It redefines what commitment means. Everybody's all in now from going on. I mean, Bernie Sanders is like, I'm willing to die for a single day. What are the rest of you ready to do? I've never seen anything like this. It ups the stakes on everything. It's crazy. All right, let's talk about Pete Buttigieg. Colin Jost played Pete Buttigieg. And what Colin Jost did with every joke was just I'm super white, saying that Pete Buttigieg is super white. And it is absolutely, they have every right to call it out. And the reason why is this whole thing's is supposed to be about intersectionality, right? Pete Buttigieg, is he an intersectionality candidate? I don't know, right? He has an attribute that would qualify him to be an intersectionality candidate, but he took that off the board. He says, no, I'm not going to be the first president that will have this attribute. There have been ones before. And I'm like, why on earth would you say that? That's your intersectionality hall pass. That's why you're allowed to be here, right? Every other candidate is having a huge problems explaining why they're super white and in the middle of this, right? Because intersectionality is supposed to matter to the Democrats. Pete Buttigieg had a hall pass saying, here's my intersectionality hall pass, right? And he's like, no, I'm just going to tear this up and throw it in the trash. I don't need it. I think you need it. It's really kind of Colin Jost just tore him up on this issue. It was pretty interesting. I really have no idea why Pete Buttigieg took his little intersectionality card and just ripped it up and threw it in the trash. Hey, you know what? I'm thinking about this now. Wow. Maybe he's doing it because he's like, yeah, I don't need it. I can win this on my own. That's pretty dope. That's courageous. You gotta say, I respect courage. I respect rolling hard. That's rolling hard. Wow. Yeah, okay. There's some thought behind that. All right. Let's two more. Tom Steyer was played by Will Ferrell. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of Will Ferrell. He had one good skit, which was more cowbell. I am a fan of more cowbell. I really think Will Ferrell goes over the top a little bit, and I think Will Ferrell was a good match with Tom Steyer because I don't think either one of those guys matters a whole lot. They're not near the top of the league on either of the things they're in. And then last, Cory Booker was played by Chris Redd. Right, I am actually a huge fan of Chris Redd. I've watched his stand-up. He is absolutely hysterical. He's really funny, Really smart guy. I really like Chris Red. I also watched all the seasons available on Netflix for a show called Disjointed with Kathy Bates. I'm a huge fan of Kathy Bates. And I hope I said that lady's name right. I think I did. But and I think Chris Red is fantastic on SNL. I think he's one of the best new current members. But he absolutely flubbed the execution on this. Right? Maybe it was just a bad night. I think he's a really good comedian. And when you come in and you're new in SNL, you're a great comedian, but you're not. Maybe you're not a great actor. Maybe you're not a good player. I love that word that SNL uses as a player. But I think this was so he was last. This is an incredibly important a moment in politics. This skit, I think this is going to go down as one. And there was a lot of time and effort and money spent on this, and also they gave pretty much equal time to all the candidates, and they covered every candidate who was in the debate. It's pretty incredible. I'm a big fan of SNL. I'm very thankful for this skit. I watched it like 3 times. I watched it with my wife. I watched it with my whole family. And we all just laughed and laughed and laughed. It was funny seeing what my wife laughed at as opposed to what I laughed at. We took a lot of joy out of this. And if you haven't seen it, go see it immediately. And also, I just want to say thank you again to SNL for the fantastic job they're doing of bringing up female comedians and giving a platform for that. You know, as Dems, we're all woke. We're supposed to care about this stuff. I do, right? And I really think it's awesome that they're doing that. All that is my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.